Hey guys, welcome back to week 3 of Prison to Paradise on Wheels. This week we worked on panning some windows in and then resealing some other windows, so I hope you enjoy. Before taking any of the windows out, I had to get these wires out of the way, so I took the original clips that they came with and some zip ties, and I temporarily held those out of the way so I could get these windows out. Once that was out of the way, I was able to take some screwdrivers and just pry at the corners until I was able to get them loose enough to get my fingers in there and then be able to pull down. These back few windows had 2x3 in front of them for the bed to sit on. These are going to hold up some of the bed, so we had to work around that a little bit, but it didn't end up being that big of a problem. We just pulled the windows down as far as we could and then pulled up and out, and those windows came out of there pretty decently, so that didn't end up being a big problem. And then to put them back in there, we just set the window all the way down and pushed in, and it worked out fairly well. As you can see, this sealer is pretty stringy, so you had to be careful about that and what you got it on, but it wasn't bad. And then coming up here to these windows closer to the front, just did the same thing. Got a screwdriver in the tops and pried apart just enough to get your fingers in there, and then pull the window down and out. Then once these windows are out, just cleaning up the old sealer, getting the frame nice and clean so the new sealer goes on and sticks nicely. As I did more and more of these, I figured out different ways of doing things and what was easier and quicker. A lot of times I was able to take a screwdriver and just pry or scrape some of that sealer off. Again, with these last few windows, we had the 2x3 that's going to hold the bed up in the way, but it ended up not being that big of a problem. It ended up working out pretty well to just pull the window down and then out, and it got all that sticky stuff. It all came with it. And then it's just back to cleaning the frame to make sure that the new sealer will stick good to both of them. This window is actually going to get panned in. I apparently didn't get any videos of putting the new pans in, but that process was fairly simple too. Once we got the tar around the window, we would just push the pan up and then put about 8 screws in each pan, and then that would hold the pan in and the window would be closed off. I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't get a video of that, so I'm still working on the whole video thing, but that's okay. And then here I'm cleaning the actual window itself, getting all that old seal off in order for the new stuff to be applied. Again, I found one of the best ways to get a lot of this seal off was to just use it and dab at the stuff that was sticking to the window, and then it would come off with the sealer. The problem we ran into with these back few windows that had the 2x3 covering the bottom sill of the window was getting that bottom cleaned. For the other ones, we were able to take a grinder to them and get at them really easily, but for these ones, we needed to figure something else out, so ended up using a wire wheel on a drill, and it worked fairly decent. It wasn't perfect, but it definitely is better than nothing. For all the windows that did not have the 2x3 in the way, I was able to take a wire wheel on a grinder and get the bottom edge all cleaned off that way. Really focused on those corners, so that way when we put the window back in, we can take some new caulk and caulk those corners nicely so we don't end up getting any water in. So in order to get any of the windows out, we first need to remove this black strip between each window. And in this particular spot, I couldn't get a driver or a screwdriver or anything in there. So I had my dad come out and help me with this part. And he figured came up with getting a driver, a little wrench, and a crowbar in there to break those screws loose. And then once they were loose, I was able to take pliers or my fingers and finish drawing them out in order to remove that black piece so we can get those windows out of there. So I mentioned earlier that we panned a few windows in. Here's what those look like from the outside. We have 3 windows panned in on the passenger side and 5 windows panned in on the driver's side. I love the way these turned out, and the brown matches perfectly. Last week I painted the emergency exits, and this weekend I was able to get those put in, and they turned out awesome as well.